Thursday morning to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. We have 2 more days of that unbearable blistering heat, and then I have some relief in store for you. So we'll talk about what we're going to see as we approach the coming weekend and as we transition into next week, where we really continue to see some of these below average temperatures. It will definitely be a welcome sight for all that have been searching for some relief from the heat. Taking a look at your 24-hour rainfall totals, boy, our southern counties have really just been getting a couple inches each and every day. It has definitely not been a dry July down in our southernmost counties, but farther to the north, we continue to find that rain is a scarcity up in areas like Macon. Not even really recording any traces of rain in the entirety of Bibb County. It does look like we have minuscule amounts across many areas of central Georgia, maybe only equating to about 1/10 of an inch or so. Only a trace of rain in Warner Robins, just 1/10 of an inch in areas like Dublin. But some isolated spots have gotten lucky right here on the county line of Jones and Baldwin counties, about 1.4 inches. 2.5 inches just to the southeast of Sandersville in Washington County, 1.1 inches down in southern Macon County. But take a look at some of these totals. Nearly 2 inches of rain just south of McRae, and then we go to the county line of Wilcox and Dodge counties, about 2.5 inches of rain. 3 inches of rain in some spots around the Pitts area, getting close to Rochelle in Wilcox County, and then 3.5 inches of rain right around Hazelhurst, just to the south and southeast of Wheeler and Telfair counties. So the good news is we have plenty more rain in the forecast, and actually rain chances are a little bit greater this afternoon and maybe getting into tomorrow afternoon for our northernmost counties. So hopefully these areas can add to some totals, but it's not going to really help July necessarily because we are officially on the last day of the month. It has been a very dry July, excuse me, and then we'll transition into the month of August, which we actually look to welcome in with our fair share of rain chances. So scorching hot for the next 2 days, a cool down for the weekend that will mainly be due to increased rain chances and increased cloud cover. It's not going to allow temperatures to warm up very much, and some areas could also see some slightly cooler and some slightly drier air that ushers in courtesy of a wedge. We'll go over the specific setup that we're looking at by the time we get to Saturday. So we had some fog in the picture amongst downtown Dublin up here in the top right corner of your screen, and you will see this is a bit of a different view right now because we flipped the camera over, taking a look at the skyscraper over in downtown Dublin. But you can see that there are your fair share of some poofy cumulus clouds down in Lawrence County, a few clouds in downtown Macon, Warner Robins, and the Georgia National Fairgrounds. But overall, your forecast is dominated by sunshine as we transition into the early afternoon hours here very shortly. So here's a look at your current numbers, hanging out in the low to mid 80s. This is definitely warmer than what we were seeing at this time yesterday. Getting some numbers back down in Cordele. We've been having some issues with the temperature readings down in the Crisp County Airport, but at the warmest at sea in 87 in downtown Dublin. So let's take a look at your current temperatures across the southeast United States. 88 does take the cake right now above that 87 degree mark down in Jacksonville. 89 as you make your way over to Panama City. And that's the warmest temperature that I do spot. So down on the panhandle of Florida, trending the warmest amongst all of our neighboring states here, approaching 11 a.m. Now taking a look at the dew points map. You could have guessed it. Yes, dark green color all over central Georgia, all over the entire state of Georgia. We take a bigger view, or a bigger picture view rather, I should say, and we don't see much in the way of that slightly drier air. We're going to be searching for colors and some shades of that not bad region, so that light green color, and that could filter in from the north and the northeast over the next couple of days. But right now, your winds continue to be out of the west and the southwest. That's continuing to propel all of this moisture in the Gulf across areas of the panhandle of Florida, southern Alabama, and the southern portion of the state of Georgia. Look how much dark green is present in areas like Albany, getting down to Valdosta, over to Waycross, St. Simons, and Savannah. It is definitely very, very muggy. We're really only seeing that darkest green shade across east central Georgia, those areas of the Oconee River Basin that we typically see hover a little bit more humid than the rest of the bunch. So your feels like numbers, we have 3 triple-digit marks, and all of them are at 101 degrees here at just around 10:30 in the morning. Feels like 101 in Gordon, Dublin, and all the way down to McRae. We have our fair share of 90s and only holding on to a couple of 80s. Feels like 87 in Thomaston and 89 in Montezuma. And don't think I'm seeing any numbers that are below those two, but those are also the only two hanging out in the 80s. Giving you an idea, we're very quick to warm up so far throughout the early part of today. Now taking a look at your winds and your wind gusts, the farther south that you travel, you're probably noticing more of a light breeze than areas farther up to the north. Anywhere from sustained winds, maybe about 7 or 8 miles per hour. Macon, Warner Robins, Cochrane, Dublin, and Eastman, along with Vidalia, are popping up those values. 9 mile per hour sustained wind over in Taylor County and Butler. But as you make your way up towards, say, Eatonton, you're not seeing anything, but that just may be the sensor not necessarily popping things up. It would say calm if we didn't see anything in the way of gusty winds. So each and every day this week, I've had a forecasted high, and we seem to be trending above it. 96 is what we hit yesterday after I forecasted a high around 94 degrees, so right around average. But thankfully, 96 is well below the triple digits and well below these records that we've been flirting with way too often over the last couple of days. 1986 is when we hit that record high of 103. No rain recorded in really the entirety of Bibb County, along with that southern Bibb County. So your year departure of rain is officially below the 1-inch mark. I did say we had a really good cushion to go through a fairly dry stretch, and we still are trending above where we should be at this time of year, thanks to a very wet May and a very wet June. But we are continuing to see that number get a little bit too close to zero. Some rain is definitely something that we need in the forecast, especially at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. So southwesterly winds today about 5 to 15 miles per hour. If you catch a thunderstorm, obviously your localized wind gusts are going to be a bit gustier than that, upwards to 30, maybe even 40 miles per hour. And if you are to pop up a severe thunderstorm warning, they get closer to about 50 or 60 miles per hour. A heat advisory is in place once again today. So we were talking about that yesterday, that it was going to go all the way into most of today. And we very well could look at another heat advisory by the time we get into Friday. Afternoon showers and storms are going to pop up, so you may not reach this high temperature of 97 degrees. But of course, if you dodge the rain for most of the afternoon window, you get into 4, 5, and 6 o'clock still dealing with lots of sunshine. This is what your high temperatures are expected to crawl to. But thankfully, it still is below the triple digits. Of course, when you factor in the humidity, you know that number is going to feel warmer. We should be very quick to pop up a triple-digit mark here in Macon by the time we get to around the midday show. But 103, 105, 104, kind of where we're topping out here in the Macon area, and some isolated areas are going to take it a step farther where you just have more moisture in the atmosphere, and you also have some temperatures that are maybe a degree or two higher than the rest of the bunch. So you will see that we have the potential for those feels like numbers to go up to 107, maybe into the upper 100s. I wouldn't doubt that an area 2 tries to flirt with that 110 degree mark. And this heat advisory going until 8 p.m. tonight. However, we are still forecasting a pretty hot day for the first day of August tomorrow. And of course, for the last day of your work week, I wouldn't doubt that we see at least some counties included in some form of a heat advisory tomorrow. Heat index values maybe not getting necessarily this high, but I do believe we'll have at least our 5th day in a row with a heat alert here in central Georgia. And in fact, it might even date back to 6 or 7 because I completely forgot that we've had heat advisories as early as last Saturday. So this may make a week stretch long of being in some form of a heat alert. Of course, the worst of which was this past Monday and Tuesday, where we were seeing that extreme heat warning. Very thankfully, we don't see counties outlined in that, but we did get a glimpse of that big picture view just a second ago. Over to the west, all around the Mississippi River, it has been brutally hot, just like the rest of us. But I do imagine those heat index values may be hovering around the same values that we've had here in central Georgia. It takes a little bit more to issue that because that's something that you don't see each and every day. And we have certain parameters that we have to hit in terms of those feels like numbers getting up to 110 and being widespread, or your actual temperatures being around 105, which very thankfully we have not had to deal with that. Highest temperature that we got to was 102 in Macon on Monday. Satellite and radar picture continues to be all clear. So not much in the way of cloud cover. Anything that we do see in the way of cloud cover is just going to be those isolated scattered clouds that we got a view of. So we're not picking them up on the satellite and radar imagery. In the overnight hours, we actually did see some thunderstorms, not in central Georgia, but if you were traveling, maybe getting out of the door really early when it was still dark out, you were probably seeing some flashes of lightning up to the north, and those were some thunderstorms that were present mainly along the I-85 corridor this morning. They were well out of reach of us here in central Georgia, but making for quite the light show in portions of northern Georgia and eventually into upstate South Carolina close to the Greenville area. So surface map, taking a look at our latest update. If you caught the morning show, you saw me showing this graphic quite a bit because we were talking about a boundary up to the north. Well, it has kicked into gear, and you can see this portion right here that is kicked into gear as a cold front. We are looking at this kind of left side of the boundary. So where you do see the cold front, not necessarily the stationary boundary up here to the north and northeast of us. This cold front will continue to slowly push down into the southeast, and it's going to play a role in our forecast for some more organized rain chances over the next couple of days. But we have to talk about what's going to settle in behind it. And of course, your rain chances are going to depend on where this frontal boundary does specifically stall. Right now, the consensus is it's going to stall in south central Georgia. So areas to the north may not be dealing with much in the way of rain, but we'll go over the latest run of Future View here in real time because I haven't taken a look at this yet whatsoever. So it looks like we continue into the afternoon hours, maybe a couple of sprinkles trying to finally fire up by about 2 p.m. Just like the last couple of days, we may see a more active satellite and radar picture this afternoon because Future View has been undershooting the rain chances a couple of days. But now we go all the way into the nighttime hours, and that's finally when those rain chances pick up. Again, this is completely different from what the model run before did say. So we'll see what happens and what plays out this afternoon. My thinking is we're still hot, we're still humid, we don't have anything inhibiting that rising motion. So I do expect our fair share of scattered showers and storms once again this afternoon. But there is some greater confidence as we go into Friday. First things first, it does look like a predominantly dry start to your Friday morning here at the 7 a.m. hour, which is going to be very good for not only myself, but many of you, because I think we have 11 school districts heading back to school tomorrow in central Georgia. Definitely our busiest day by far, and we'll touch on which school districts those are towards the end of the stream. But there we go. We finally see some decent rain coverage according to this latest model run of Future View. Scattered showers, a couple of storms going to be possible. Even some strong to severe storms could be in the picture. And we'll talk about your day 2 storm outlook in just 1 second. But then we go into your Saturday, and this is where things start to change. We start to see this flow coming in from the north and the northeast. Much of the cloud cover is going to be to the north of us for most of the first half of Saturday. But then we'll start to see that cloud cover be a lot more widespread here in central Georgia. At the very least, it looks like more clouds than we've had as of recent days. And then depending on where this boundary stalls, down to the south of it and along it, that's where your greater rain chances are going to be. When you have stationary boundaries or any kind of boundary itself, it does act as a form of lift, and that's going to continue to enhance that convective energy that we see. Typically during the summertime months, obviously you're operating off the heat of the day, just that general warm air rises, cool air sinks that we talk about. But when you have a widespread lifting mechanism, it can create widespread rain chances, and that's what we do see. It looks like this frontal boundary is really draped across central Alabama and goes all the way down to portions of central Georgia, but it does look like it really just kind of directly stalls over our area. Not to say that you can't get rain chances behind it, but whatever you see in the way of rain should be a lot lighter in nature and not necessarily as widespread as you would see down where the warm and muggy air is going to remain. Because you see this northeasterly flow, and whenever we talk about winds coming in from the north and the northeast, that's where we talk about a potential wedge setup. So cooler and drier air trying to filter down from up north along the Appalachian Mountains, and it's actually going to be quite a perfect setup with a high pressure center to the north of us and then a low pressure center off of the Atlantic coast. So we know those low pressure centers, they do spin counterclockwise, the direction that my hand is going right here, backwards on a clock. And high pressure centers, they go the opposite way. They go clockwise right here. So we're kind of just creating a funneling of cooler and drier air from up to the north and the northeast. And of course, the Appalachian Mountains will continue to guide it really far down south into northern portions of the state of Georgia, northeastern Georgia. But some of that could be present the farther north and northeast that you live here in central Georgia. But it remains to be seen how much of that actually filters into our forecast. right now cloud cover and widespread rain are definitely looking to be the main factors that keep our temperatures down starting on Saturday. So I did mention that we are in a storm outlook for tomorrow. This is a look at your day 2 storm outlook. This doesn't change anything with what I've been saying about the next couple of days so far. This just means that there could be greater confidence that we could see maybe some strong to potentially even severe storms as we go into your Friday afternoon, mainly because of that driving force, that frontal boundary actually giving this an organized chance for severe weather. Gusty winds from about the 40 to 60 mile per hour range could be possible. Your heavy rainfall, that's probably going to be the biggest factor because we have a lot of moisture in the air, and that's going to contribute to heavier rainfall rates. If you have thunderstorms that sit over the same area, they can dump inches and inches of rain over just a short period of time, which of course we know can contribute to some isolated flash flooding, so we'll be on the lookout for that. And just your typical impacts that you see from thunderstorms this time of year. Frequent lightning, of course, a lot of thunder to go and follow up with that, and the possibility of even seeing some hail within the core of most intense rainfall. We saw some hail just a couple of days ago in areas like Lawrence County, even got some damage reported down in Telfair County from just some strong thunderstorms, not even severe thunderstorms. So just because we're in a storm outlook for tomorrow doesn't mean that, oh, okay, this is the only day we need to worry about. Of course, when you hear thunder outside, that means you need to go indoors. When thunder roars, go indoors. We do not just say it because it's a catchy saying and it does rhyme. It is definitely a good piece of advice because that means some heavy stuff is going to be coming your way fairly shortly. And of course, when you can get some of those strong thunderstorms, you could have some gusty winds up to 40 miles per hour, 50 miles per hour. That's still not enough to trigger a severe thunderstorm warning. It would give us a special weather statement, of course, but those winds are definitely gusty enough to blow around loose objects or anything that's not necessarily really secure. And if the soil does get very, very saturated, then that can contribute to some trees blowing down. And what do trees knock down? Just about anything that is around them, including some power lines, and that could result in some short power outages depending on where you are. So just to tell you, you should never take your guard down when you are in the summertime months, but it is a great likelihood that you are going to miss some of that strong weather. It's going to be in very isolated spots if you do see it. So I've still maintained a 50% chance of rain for Thursday and Friday, not necessarily going off the coverage of what the models say, just more potential. And with high temperatures in the upper 90s, feels like numbers that are going to be well above the triple digits, I do still think it's going to be a conducive environment for scattered showers and even a couple of storms. But then your forecast changes. As we go into Saturday, I was saying a lot this morning, one of these is not like the other. And because 87 for a high temperature, I can't remember the last time I saw an 80-degree day that we popped up on the almanac. It's definitely been a couple of weeks, maybe even back into the end of June, where we did have a really warm spell, and then we saw those temperatures dip down before the 4th of July. But then 60% chance of rain. I'm more confident in your rain chances for Saturday because our boundary is going to be sitting across central Georgia. And once again, if it's going to be farther down to the south, then those rain chances will probably go down. But right now the thinking is it's going to really park itself somewhere in central Georgia. And I do think that that organization and that boundary itself will create more widespread rain chances. And your high temperature is a lot lower, not only because of the greater chance of rain, but take a look at this icon I have. You see a lot more clouds on this as opposed to sunlight, because we will get some peaks of sunshine here and there that will allow for a steady warm up. But widespread cloud cover is really going to inhibit that warm up. We're not going to see those temperatures get as high as they can. And it looks like Sunday and Monday are going to be the best feeling of the bunch. 81 degrees on Sunday, 83 degrees on Monday because of these cloudy and these rainy skies that we have towards the end of the weekend into the beginning of next week. The only trade-off is it is going to be raining. It is going to be storming. So yes, of course, not the best weather that you want each and every afternoon to get those outdoor plans in. But after about 6 to 7 days in some form of a heat alert, whether that's a heat advisory, whether that's an extreme heat warning, or those extreme heat watches that we saw issued as of last Saturday morning, this is going to be a very pleasant change of pace rolling into the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th days of August with some below average temperatures, below 90-degree temperatures, and definitely will put us out of any of that heat alert criteria. So sometimes you have to make the sacrifices for what you truly desire, and I do believe this is a sacrifice that everyone is going to be willing to make. So speaking of that drier air, do we see it inserted into central Georgia? Taking a look at your muggy meter, it does look like some slightly drier air. By the time we get to Sunday and Monday, that's definitely not going to be widespread. If you live down in Crisp County, Wilcox County, you're probably not going to feel this slightly drier air whatsoever. However, if you do live in areas like Putnam County, Hancock County, you guys have a greater chance of noticing a little bit of relief in terms of lower humidity, a more comfortable feel when you walk outside. Of course, we do know during the summertime months after it rains, it is mightily humid outside, so just be on standby for that. But how long will this pattern stay in place? That's going to be a big question I'm sure a lot of you have, because many of you are going to say, okay, I'm good with about a day or two of rain, and then let's transition back into that sunshine. Well, this pattern is actually going to stay put for quite some time. We go into Sunday evening now, and it still does look like widespread cloud cover, widespread rain. This frontal boundary may move a little bit south out of central Georgia, and that's probably why we're looking at the insertion of some of that cooler and drier air the farther south that boundary does move. So the rain chances in southern Georgia, northern Florida, the panhandle of Florida, all those areas along the boundary are definitely going to be greater than farther up to the north, but it still does look like widespread rain in areas all around us or even here over us in central Georgia. So we still have some pretty good rain chances even as we head into the midweek next week. But then after Wednesday, we finally see maybe signs of this messy pattern leaving. You still obviously see the cloud cover right here, but this is getting about a week out in advance. We know this is far from certain, but it does look like whatever is finally sitting over here for an extended period of time will finally get out of here, and we will finally see maybe some of those hot and humid conditions return. But the only thing I saw in the long range models was highs maybe up into the low 90s, maybe around average at the very most. We weren't looking at a big heat spell somewhere near the triple digits, even as we go well into your extended forecast. So that's a good sign as of right now, and this continues to be a good sign. Tropics Outlook, 8 a.m. update this morning, we are still not finding any areas of potential development, and that's mainly because we don't have any forces over here in the Gulf, maybe in the Western Atlantic, that are acting as maybe mechanisms of lift per se. But those water temperatures are going to begin to warm up, and a big reason for no activity expected within the next week continues to be plenty of this dust out in the central Atlantic. Eventually that dust will start to fall apart and not play as much of a role, but we're still not expecting anything for what has been maybe a quiet start to the tropic season so far. We talked a little bit about this the other day here on the extended forecast, and we have seen the conditions and even some of these tropical storms, or the remnants of the tropical storms that have formed so far, contribute to some widespread flooding in portions of North Carolina, the hill country of Texas. So of course, in terms of impacts, it definitely hasn't been a quiet season so far, but we still haven't had a named hurricane. We've only had 3 named storms. But as we go into the month of August, we always talk about it, that's when we start to see an uptick in activity. So this yellow shade right here, that's your frequency of hurricanes, and then you combine the frequency of hurricanes and those just named tropical storms, which obviously aren't as intense as hurricanes, but they still can have some pretty drastic impacts like we've seen over the last couple of months. That's when the activity does begin to really increase very rapidly. So you really start to hit that steep slope going up the roller coaster until you officially hit that peak of the season, which will be on September 10th. So on average, our first hurricane occurs on August 11th. As of right now, the general thinking is, yeah, we'll probably trend behind average in terms of seeing that first hurricane, but this is still about 2 weeks out, so anything can happen. August, September, and into October, we average about 11 to 12 named storms. So at the very most of that range, that's about 4 times as much activity as we've seen so far in hurricane season over the course of really the next 2 months. So it's going to start to get pretty active out there. Hopefully we can continue to be more on par with the lower end of ranges forecast, or maybe close to average really for what we see in terms of named storms, hurricanes, major hurricanes, and hopefully we have a quiet tropic season. But of course, we do know that we have to keep our eyes peeled for this August to October timeframe, because that's when we see the frequency of the most tropical activity in nature. So taking a look at your 7-day forecast, 2 more days of heat. You just got to make it through the next 2 days, and then I promise you it will feel a whole lot more bearable outside. First day of August is going to be more of what we've seen basically the entire month of July. High temperatures in the upper 90s that of course are going to feel well into the triple digits. We're going to be on the lookout for yet another heat advisory for tomorrow. And the National Weather Service did say that they're going to take another look at it, at least for portions of central Georgia later on today. So if we are to get a heat advisory extended into tomorrow, you'll find out as we go into the afternoon hours today. 50% chance of a shower or a storm today and tomorrow. So think of it like this. It's a 50-50 shot. Flip a coin if you're going to see rain or not. Obviously, don't go off what that coin says, but that's just kind of the name of the game during the summertime months. You don't know where the rain's going to pop up. You don't know where the most intense rain is going to be located, but you have the potential for it each and every afternoon in light of a hot and humid atmosphere. Then our high temperatures, they take a nosedive. 10-degree drop between Friday and Saturday in light of better cloud coverage and better chances of rain. 60 and 70% all the way through your weekend and into the beginning of next week. And right now, Tuesday and Wednesday are still a little bit up in the air, but it does look like we're going to hold on to the 80s. The lowest that we get looks to be Sunday, 81 degrees, and Sunday continues to really see that number drop down. I've seen multiple models forecasting upper 70s, which would mean we don't get a peak of sunshine all day and the rain sticks around for quite a while. That's what happens when you typically have clouds in the forecast. You don't see much variation between that overnight low and your afternoon high temperature because the sun is really not influencing your forecast. You're not getting any of that solar radiation whatsoever. But then we'll see a steady uptick in the high temperatures. Now, this is a warming trend I can get behind right here. I mean, 2 degrees between Sunday and Monday, 3-degree increase between Monday and Tuesday, 88 at the very highest as we go into next week. Of course, we will continue to warm up as we go into next weekend. I do believe low 90s will be back in your forecast probably Thursday and Friday as we go into maybe that first full week, school week for many students, or maybe getting somewhere into the second school week if you did start this week. But overall, it may be a messy forecast, but it is definitely a welcome trade-off here in central Georgia. But I did mention tomorrow is going to be a very busy day for lots and lots of school districts here in central Georgia. Washington County, Bleckley County, and Wilkinson County all heading back to the classroom. We've had 6 school districts head back so far if you add on what areas came back or went back to the classroom today. So Lamar County, then you get over to Jones County where we were live this morning. Dooley County and Taylor County all made their way back to the classroom. They joined Houston County and Peach County, who started yesterday and the day before. So this will put the tally at 9 right here, but this isn't the only graphic I have. Let's add in 3 more central Georgia counties and school districts: Crawford County, Monroe County, and Dublin City Schools. Connor Hendricks and I are both going to be live at Dublin High School tomorrow, so make sure you're tuning into the morning show. I'll be doing some live weather, and Ansley Parker will be helping me out from back here in the studio for some of the streaming hours. But then that puts the tally at 12. Once again, not the last graphic I have. Wilcox County, Wheeler County, and Crisp County, so much of our southernmost counties are going back to the classroom. You may think it stops there. It unfortunately does not. We have 2 more central Georgia counties, Putnam County and Upson County. So all those fun graphics that I show each and every morning, giving you your current conditions for areas that maybe don't have a temperature location or a temperature plot on our temperature graphic that we show you each and every day. You guys are going to get a very localized forecast about what you're heading out the door to. So we are adding 11 school districts back to central Georgia tomorrow. That will put the grand tally up at 17, and we still have a whole lot more to go as we go into Monday, Tuesday, and finally Wednesday, the last day of back to school here in central Georgia next week. So a lot to anticipate and a lot to be happy about, especially if you really have been really yearning for some of that cooler temperature or some of those cooler temperatures. It will be a welcome sight, but do not go anywhere without your raincoat and your rain jacket. It is definitely going to come in handy throughout each and every afternoon for the foreseeable future. Thanks for tuning in to your extended forecast. We'll be back here once again at 10:30 for a weekend look ahead and what's ahead for next week.